The hum of a supposedly pristine engine lulls you into a sense of moral security. You grip the steering wheel, feeling the smooth acceleration of a vehicle marketed to the world as the absolute pinnacle of environmental responsibility. You paid a premium for a clean conscience, believing your purchase was a small but vital step toward saving a warming planet. But beneath the hood, hidden deep within millions of lines of proprietary code, a silent predator is waiting. It watches the steering angle, it monitors the barometric pressure, it calculates the exact moment it is being watched by regulators, and it lies. When a person buys into a green initiative, they are purchasing an identity as much as a product. The betrayal here is uniquely intimate, striking at the very core of a consumer's value system. It is not merely a financial theft, it is the theft of one's own moral agency. Millions of drivers were turned into unwitting accomplices in the exact environmental destruction they had sacrificed financially to avoid. The realization that this trust was systematically weaponized forces a chilling reevaluation of corporate morality. To understand the depth of this deception, one must look away from the deceived consumer and step into the high-pressure boardrooms of Wolfsburg, Germany. The ambition to dominate the global automotive market, specifically the fiercely competitive United States sector, required nothing short of an engineering miracle. Executives demanded a diesel car that was incredibly powerful, highly fuel-efficient, and capable of passing the most stringent environmental regulations on the planet. The engineering constraints were brutal, governed by the unforgiving laws of physics. It was an open secret in the industry that you could not achieve high performance, low costs, and ultra-low emissions all at once. Something had to give. Faced with an impossible standard and an authoritarian corporate culture that refused to accept failure, the engineers did not admit defeat. Instead, they chose deception. They engineered a solution not in the physical mechanics of the engine, but in the dark, invisible shadows of the software. This was the birth of the defeat devices, a term that sounds like a mechanical lever, but was, in reality, a highly sophisticated, malicious algorithm. The software was a masterpiece of dark engineering, designed with a singular, deceitful purpose. It could detect the precise, predictable conditions of an official laboratory emissions test. When the car was strapped to a dynamometer, running a specific speed profile with the steering wheel locked perfectly straight, the software engaged a pristine, low-emissions mode. It actively starved the engine of its full power, ensuring the exhaust burned incredibly clean for the duration of the exam. But the moment the vehicle drove off the testing lot, the digital parameters shifted. The steering wheel turned, the speed varied, and the software recognized the open road. It instantly switched off the vital emissions controls. The car roared to life, delivering the promised aggressive power and stellar fuel economy, while secretly vomiting toxic nitrogen oxide into the atmosphere at up to 40 times the legal limit. How does a massive, coordinated fraud of this magnitude take root within a globally revered institution? It requires a terrifying normalization of deviance. It demands an environment where the relentless pressure to succeed completely overrides the fundamental ethics of engineering. Dozens of brilliant minds had to look at this rogue code, fully understand its deceitful function, and choose to remain silent. The lie was then packaged, polished, and sold to the public with breathtaking audacity. Massive marketing campaigns blanketed the globe, aggressively touting the miracle of clean diesel technology. They painted bright green halos over vehicles that were secretly operating as rolling toxic emitters. The cognitive dissonance between the glossy, nature-filled advertisements and the dark reality of the exhaust pipes was staggering. The unseen environmental damage accumulated with every mile driven. Nitrogen oxide is not a harmless byproduct. It is a severe respiratory irritant that contributes heavily to smog, acid rain, and fatal lung conditions. Millions of tons of excess pollutants were secretly pumped into the air, creating an invisible, unquantifiable toll on human health that extended far beyond the immediate buyers of the vehicles. The unraveling of this global conspiracy did not begin with a dramatic government raid or an explosive corporate whistleblower. It started quietly, driven by pure scientific curiosity. a small, unassuming team of researchers at West Virginia University secured a grant to test vehicle emissions in real-world driving conditions. They were not looking to unearth a historic scandal. They merely wanted to verify the effectiveness of modern emissions controls on the open road. The researchers strapped bulky, portable emissions measurement systems to the trunks of a Volkswagen Jetta and a Passat, running thick hoses directly into the exhaust pipes. They drove these cars down the California coast, logging continuous data as the vehicles navigated heavy city traffic in Los Angeles and climbed steep highway inclines. It was a routine experiment, fully expected to yield routine results that would confirm the manufacturer's bold environmental claims. The data that came back from the road was utterly incomprehensible. The nitrogen oxide readings were not just slightly elevated, they were wildly, impossibly off the charts. The researchers stared at the numbers, their initial reaction being one of profound self-doubt. In the face of such a massive, glaring discrepancy, a rigorous scientist first assumes their own equipment is broken. They recalibrated their delicate instruments. They ran the grueling tests again, scrutinizing every possible variable and potential point of failure. But the data remained stubbornly, terrifyingly consistent. The portable measurement systems were working perfectly. It was the cars that were lying. The researchers had inadvertently stumbled upon the digital tripwire of the hidden software. The findings from West Virginia University were eventually published, sending a quiet but profound shockwave through the specialized regulatory community. The International Council on Clean Transportation brought the damning data directly to the authorities. The EPA investigation officially began, turning the immense, unforgiving weight of federal scrutiny toward the German automaker. The corporate response to the initial inquiries was a masterclass in institutional gaslighting, a tactic where the perpetrator attempts to make the victim doubt their own reality. They vehemently denied any wrongdoing. They blamed technical anomalies, unpredictable real-world driving conditions, and minor software glitches. They attempted to bury the regulators in dense technical jargon, hoping to exhaust the investigation before the truth could be fully unearthed. But the EPA regulators possessed the hard, undeniable data, and they refused to look away. The tense standoff dragged on for months, a silent war of attrition between government scientists and corporate lawyers. The turning point finally arrived when the agency played its ultimate trump card. They threatened to completely withhold the certification required for the company to sell its 2016 model year diesel cars in the United States. Faced with the catastrophic prospect of an absolute market lockout, the corporate resolve finally shattered. In a tense, quiet meeting with regulators, engineers finally admitted the existence of the defeat devices. They confessed that the cars had been deliberately programmed to cheat the tests. The elaborate, multi-billion-dollar illusion of clean diesel collapsed in an instant. In September 2015, the story erupted across the globe. The world was formally introduced to the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. The sheer scale of the emissions cheating left the public, the automotive industry, and environmental groups reeling. This was not a localized manufacturing error. It was a deliberate, systematic fraud affecting roughly 11 million vehicles worldwide. The executive fallout was swift, brutal, and highly public. The company's stock value evaporated by billions in a matter of days. At the center of the storm was Martin Winterkorn, the exacting CEO known for his intense micromanagement and relentless drive for global supremacy. He resigned shortly after the news broke, professing profound shock at the massive scale of the misconduct. He claimed he was completely unaware of the deliberate fraud perpetrated under his watch. This defense raised a chilling, unresolved question about modern corporate power structures. Can a deception requiring such extensive engineering, rigorous testing, and widespread implementation truly remain hidden from the architect of the company's aggressive expansion strategy? The insulation of power often allows those at the top to reap the rewards of deception while maintaining plausible deniability. Back on the ground, the initial shock among consumers quickly curdled into a deep, abiding fury. People who had proudly affixed environmental bumper stickers to their diesel cars realized they had been betrayed by the very brand they championed. The psychological weight of being manipulated into harming the environment they sought to protect was a heavy, bitter burden to bear. The betrayal cut deepest for the lifelong brand loyalists. These were people who trusted the badge, passing their affinity for the cars down through generations. To discover that this trusted entity viewed them not as partners in a greener future, but as gullible marks in a massive confidence game, shattered an unspoken social contract. The path to justice involved a grueling, years-long legal reckoning. The automaker faced billions of dollars in unprecedented fines, massive vehicle buyback programs, and sweeping criminal indictments. Executives who had once commanded immense respect and multi-million-dollar salaries found themselves facing international arrest warrants and lengthy prison sentences. The corporate veil had been forcefully pierced, exposing the deep ethical rot within. Yet the scars of this profound betrayal remain permanently etched into the landscape. Fines and buybacks cannot unbreathe poisoned air. The environmental damage inflicted during those years of deception is already done, lingering in the atmosphere and in the compromised health of untold individuals. Justice in the courtroom does not erase the physical reality of the harm caused. The enduring legacy of the emissions cheating scandal serves as a dark, cautionary tale of unchecked ambition. It forced a global reevaluation of how society regulates powerful, deeply entrenched industries. It proved that without rigorous, independent, and technologically advanced oversight, corporate ambition will inevitably prioritize profit over public health, weaponizing brilliant innovation to bypass basic morality. Trust is a fragile, complex ecosystem, built slowly over decades and destroyed in a single moment of revelation. When a revered institution systematically lies to the world, it poisons the well of public faith just as surely as it poisons the atmosphere. The ghost in the machine has been unmasked, but the lingering echoes of that deception serve as a permanent reminder of the lengths to which unchecked power will go to maintain a profitable illusion.